I'm Grant Boone. It's the calm between the storms for the ACU football team.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. After last week's big win at Tarleton, we'll see how the Cats are using this off week to get ready for a former national champion in Big D. The Chris Thomsen Show starts right now.
Welcome to Week 3 of the Chris Thomsen Show. I'm Grant Boone, along with ACU Senior Broadcast Journalism Major Austin Gwynn and the head coach of the Wildcat football team, Chris Thomsen. Today is an open date for ACU. The next game a week from today at Cowboy Stadium against three-time national champion North Alabama. Coach, last week the production team ran a great 2-minute drill to cobble together some highlights and get a show together the morning after that big 27-24 win over Tarleton State, the season opening, conference opening victory. When we shot last week's show, you hadn't had a chance to see the film. Now you have. What jumped out at you? Maybe good and maybe some things that need to improve after seeing the film.
Well, just after seeing the film, just so many little mistakes, just things that people not in the right spot in coverage. Really some breakdowns in the red zone, both offensively and defensively. Our red zone production was poor just because of penalties. We were taking delay of games or false starts, and then defensively, we had two of the biggest stops in the red zone we've ever had, but we also had a couple of, just basic busts that gave them really untouched, uncontested touchdowns. And so those are big things that we're trying to focus on cleaning up, and that we've got to get cleaned up to have a great season.
And Coach, last year you didn't have a bye week, 11 straight weeks of regular season play. You guys have one after the first game this year. What are you doing with your off week?
Well, we've set some objectives. One thing is to get back in the weight room. Training camp kind of takes it out of you. So we're going to lift. We've lifted 4 times this week. As far as on the field, trying to eliminate those foolish penalties, we've really put an emphasis on that. Basically, we're running after practice for, running a gasser for every foolish penalty that we have in practice, trying to make the point of, those are going to kill you, and then working our red zone offense and defense, and working our two-minute stuff. Everybody. Oregon and Auburn last year have kind of got everybody in the country in this hurry-up mode on offense. So we have to work that a lot on practice to help our defense. So we've had a lot of things that we're trying to clean up, and we've had a good productive week. I think it'll help us in the long run.
Did you come out healthy from the game against Tarleton?
Pretty much. We've got a few guys banged up, but nobody will be out. I think we'll get everybody for the North Alabama game, and nobody really serious.
Okay. Well, when we come back, we'll take a closer look at some of those key plays in that big season-opening victory over Tarleton State. Back in a moment on the Chris Thomsen Show. Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. We're going to look back now at some of the key plays from last Thursday's 27-24 victory over Tarleton State in Stephenville. Coach, let's begin in the final few seconds of the first half. Your team already down 14-10 when one of your new players, a D1 transfer, makes a huge play.
Yeah, Derek Drummond just comes in the game, either his first or second play in the game, just drops into coverage, and if he doesn't make this play, it's 21-10, and the momentum's clearly in their favor, but that took the momentum away. Huge play by Derek.
And Coach, we see here you use a screen pass a lot against Tarleton. You used it in years past. Jarkandrick doesn't really do anything special, just sprints 41 yards for the score. Yeah,
we're just trying to slow their rush down a little bit. They had a great pass rush, and you saw Josh Perez and Matt Weber get out on the perimeter and kick those guys out. And Jarkandrick used his speed. He got a nice burst through the hole there.
This game last Thursday was the 4th day of the fall semester. 4 days into last year's first week of school. Jarkandrick West wasn't even on your campus. Yeah. You brought him in, and he's really become an important player for your team.
Yeah, he is. He's big in the kick return game, and he was the backup running back on Thursday night. Daryl Richardson was hurt, and came in and made some big plays, and he's only going to get better as he gets experience.
Well, at that point, it was 17-14. You guys had the lead, but then they come back with 10 unanswered points. It's 24-17. You fail on a 4th down. They take over. You get the ball back, 4 minutes to go, and Darian Hogg on 1st and 20 after your team sustained a holding penalty makes a terrific catch. that really kind of made you feel like you got a shot to win this thing?
Yeah, Tarleton played a lot of man coverage Thursday night and did a great job. They've got some great corners, and Mitchell just said, at one point here, he's just going to throw it up and let Darian have a shot. And what a huge play by Darian. That was a great play and got us going. We needed that for our confidence at that point.
7 catches for 99 yards.
And that was huge because he had just dropped a 4th down pass the drive previous and kind of made up for it with that spectacular
Yeah, and that
catch.
tells you a little bit about his makeup. He's a tough kid and bounced back, made a huge play.
And we've seen this story before, a tight game down to the final couple of minutes. Richardson turns a play that might not be something, special into a game-winning touchdown. We saw it a couple of times last year against Midwestern, against WT. We see it again here. Well, take us through that play. What's he doing there?
Well, he's, really he's just kind of a safety valve, and everything down the field was covered up. Tarleton did a great job with their coverage and lifted a little bit and left the running back, uncovered. And Mitchell got some pressure and flipped it to him. And what a lot of people didn't see on that play was Hogg made a huge block as Daryl's coming across the field. Darian Hogg comes up with a huge block and takes out 2 guys and allows Daryl to get in the end zone. Big play.
Coach, that happened with 1:09 to play. Your team took a 27-24 lead. It really, that last drive for Tarleton, after you elect to go with a short kickoff and really not allow them any kind of a return, it really felt like the 15th round of a heavyweight fight. You'd sack them, they'd come back with a big pass play. They get down to the 5-yard line, and on 1st and goal with 8 seconds to play, you get a great play from a kid who last year, Nate Bailey, seemed to show a knack for being in the right place at the right time, and he certainly was in that situation.
Yeah, Nate was last year kind of our 3rd safety, played a lot but wasn't a starter, and moved him to corner in the spring. He's just a guy that's real consistent, works hard every day and learns what he's supposed to learn, and he's in the right spot. And in this plays in zone coverage, they send his man across the field, the guy that's lined up on him, so he just sits in the zone and kind of reads the quarterback's eyes and steps up and makes one of the biggest plays since I've been here.
Well, interestingly, too, I think, he caught it, began to run, and then I think just kind of realized there's nothing that I can accomplish by running this football. He got down on the ground.
Well, and that's another deal, just a heady play. Some guys might have tried to score with that thing, but he realized at about the 3-yard line, he dropped down, and I thought there was going to be 1 second left, but he got out just enough and ran the time off the clock. Just a huge play.
Well, you talk about this. I know we've already discussed this, but while each unit, I think, can look at the film and say, wow, we've got a lot to work on, I thought, both offensively and defensively, each team stepped up when the game was on the line.
Yeah, they did, and huge stops. We talked about our inconsistencies in the red zone, but those are 2 of the biggest plays we've ever had with Drummond and Bailey, and then Mitchell and the offense finding a way towards the end. And then, in the special teams game, Morgan Lineberry hit 2 field goals and their guy missed 2. And so that was a big difference there. Credit Morgan and that field goal unit for scoring some points there.
We've seen our offense step up a lot late in games, but it's really the defense that seems to always make the big play. 2 years back, Commerce in overtime, we saw in the first play of overtime a touchdown or an interception return for a touchdown to win the game for ACU in the Cotton Bowl. Talk about just the defense and how they've been able to step up late in games.
Well, and I even think about Midwestern last year where we score and Midwestern has a chance with Zach Eskridge to go down the field, and Bryson and Kevin strip the ball and recover it there about midfield. I think we forced some critical turnovers at the end of games that have helped us, and our staff on defense does a great job of working how to take the ball away and force turnovers, and I think that shows up a lot, and our guys are doing a great job executing at the end of games.
Well, let's hear from a couple of the players who figured dramatically in that win over Tarleton State and see what they had on their minds in those closing moments.
Well, as a player, when the other team has the ball on their 5-yard line with about 8 seconds left, and if they score, the game's over. And if they kick a field goal, we got to go more time. It's just nerve-wracking as a player. You don't want to watch that kind of stuff. You just wish the defense would get it done and get the game over with, so you don't have to watch that.
When my helmet came off, I don't know, I couldn't believe that my helmet came off. The first thing I thought about is really just get to the sideline. And I don't know, I really couldn't believe that my helmet came off. I'm still in shock. Every time I looked at the picture on the Optimist, I'm still in shock. So, but it was a cool experience.
I prayed about 25 times. I didn't want to look on the field, so I just kept praying.
We also asked the players what they're doing this week to prepare for the game against North Alabama.
It's a lot more room to grow, a lot more room to grow. And just cleaning up a lot of things on just technique, just little things, and just becoming a better player, a better team player, and just working on me and everybody else in the wide receiver corps. So.
Well, Coach gave us about 4 lists of things to do, get better at assignment, technique and effort, and just get stronger and faster. So that's what we're building towards this week.
I think just getting in shape, getting in more like game shape, and just going out there every play and playing like this is my last play, you know?
Yeah.
No, don't take any like plays off. So.
It was great to hear from Taylor and Darian, but this is the shot I want to see. We're going to break down the game film of Coach T's celebration. Coach, I said earlier that it felt like a bigger game than just game 1 of the season, and your reaction here showed how much it meant to you and your team.
It was. I mean, when you play Tarleton, and whether it's the first game of the year or game 10 or whatever it is, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get a win in conference, and you get excited, and that was a great moment. I'm really happy for Nate. He's a great kid and executed that play, made a huge play.
One of the biggest hits of the year came from Richard Haven just pounding you in the chin.
Yeah, he caught me right in the chin there. And, he probably meant to do it. He's a fifth-year senior, giving him a lot of grief over the years. So,
Coach, great win. When we come back, we'll take a look at more ACU sports news from around campus. We have Taylor Langston and Kristen Goodspeed with the JMC Network Sportscast after this. Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Now, I know we've already looked at some key plays, Grant, but let's talk about some other subjects that we didn't quite get to with Coach T. For how bad the ACU offensive line was, the defensive line was that good. They got a lot of pressure on the Tarleton quarterback all night. Ryan Smith was the LSC Defensive Player of the Week, had 3 sacks and a forced fumble.
Yeah.
What did you see from the defensive line this year as opposed to last year?
Well, huge shoes for Ryan Smith to fill because the starting right defensive end last year was Fred Thomsen. And Thomsen was an absolute beast. It could have been All-America as far as I was concerned. And so Ryan is a guy who missed a couple of years ago the entire 2009 season with an injury. And I was talking to Coach T about him before the season started, and he said he's not just a program guy, a good, hard-working guy who, can step in and give us a few plays. He said this guy's really talented. Came out of Fort Worth and had a couple of sacks against Tarleton in last year's blowout win. But what Ryan did that was so important is that when Aston Whiteside occupied those double teams, as he did Thursday night and will do all season and has done the last 4 years, Ryan stepped up and made plays. It's one thing for Aston to occupy extra protection. It's another thing for the guy to come in and actually make plays behind him, and that's what Ryan Smith did.
And a couple of receivers who had to step in and fill some big and fast shoes. We've already heard from him, Darian Hogg and Taylor Gabriel. I thought they had a pretty good game.
Yeah, Darian Hogg was Edmund Gates' backup last year on the team, and Taylor Gabriel made his presence felt in the kick return game. In fact, against Tarleton last year, had an 80-yard punt return. Incredible speed. Taylor Gabriel's a really good route runner, and Darian is a really tough player. You heard Coach T say that on Daryl Richardson's catch and run for the go-ahead and eventually the winning score, Darian had a huge block out there in the perimeter. 2 hard, tough guys. And so it'll be a little bit different. With Radway and Gates, it was go, hard and fast. With these guys, maybe, a little different personality, but important. And as we said, there just isn't time to grow up. You have to be good right away. And both of those guys were good when they had to be the other night, each with 2 huge catches. Each with a huge catch in that closing winning drive. And
another player that was good when they had to be, Daryl Richardson. He didn't see a lot of the field, had a straight hamstring, but he sure came up big when it mattered.
Well, Daryl Richardson, is a guy that Coach T says maybe doesn't even realize how good he is. I mean, Coach T told me that one time last year, or a couple of years ago, said, do you know how good you can be? And he said he's not even sure that Daryl knows. But Richardson, just like his big brother Bernard, has incredible physical skills. Not the same player Bernard is by any means, but when he gets in, good things tend to happen, and it sure did the other night. That was not an easy catch and run that he made.
Absolutely not. The Brett Favre shovel pass had to kind of make something happen out of nothing. And the guy throwing him that pass, Mitchell Gale, I just got a tweet from the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, saying that Peyton Manning had another surgery. Let's say Mitchell goes down.
Let's not. Do we have to?
Well, we don't.
Okay.
But let's say he goes down. what would happen?
Yeah, you're looking at the impact of losing a quarterback like Gale compared to what it would mean for the Colts to lose Peyton Manning as they've done. It's impossible to say. John David Baker is currently the backup quarterback. There's a terrific redshirt freshman, Malcolm Rubin, is a big guy. But you don't know what would happen. Maybe John David Baker would step up and be great. You don't want to lose Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell was a finalist as Player of the Year in Division II last year, threw 38 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I go back to 3 years ago when Billy Malone busted his thumb against West Texas A&M toward the end of 2008. And Zach Stewart, his backup, came in and engineered 2 huge victories, one of which was on the road against Kingsville and then a homecoming win against Tarleton State. Zach was able to turn it around and hand off to number 3, Bernard Scott, who was Player of the Year that year. ACU is a different team than it was 3 years ago. I think the one thing you can say unequivocally is you want Mitchell Gale in the lineup for every snap until the game is out of reach for the other team. He's incredibly valuable.
And let's not forget, 2 years ago we were asking these questions about Mitchell, if he could do it, and now he's a Harlan Hill candidate.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's throw it up to the JMC Newsroom with Taylor and Kristen for the Sportscast.
Thanks, Austin. With an open slot in the schedule this week, and the Wildcat football team gears up for their biggest game of the season. North Alabama sits 2 spots behind ACU, ranked 5th in the nation, according to the Football Coaches Association poll. The matchup on September 17th is the first to pit 2 top 5 teams against each other at none other than Cowboys Stadium in Arlington. Ryan Smith will be there ready to face off against the Lions after being awarded the LSE Defensive Player of the Week against Tarleton after recording 3 sacks and a forced fumble. To buy tickets for the game next weekend, go to acusports.com.
ACU's soccer team is off to a 2-0 start for the 4th time in 5 years. Dallas Baptist and A&M International could not keep up with the Wildcats last week. Junior forward Krista Grimm from Colorado Springs stood out with 2 goals and an overtime game-winning assist to sophomore forward Andrea Carpenter. Carpenter recorded the most prolific season in the soccer team's young history, leading them to their first ever NCAA tournament win last season. Carpenter received the Lone Star Conference Offensive Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year awards, setting the Wildcat records on points and goals. The Wildcats will put their 2-game winning streak on the line and face 2 tough teams Wednesday and Sunday. The Wildcats play Central Oklahoma and Edmond on Wednesday at 2. The Cats will take the pitch again versus the Truman State Bulldogs at 11 a.m. Sunday at Incarnate Word.
After a stellar start to the season, the ACU volleyball team has captured the 25 slot in the Volleyball Coaches Association poll. The Wildcats went 3-1 in their tournament opener at the St. Mary's Classic in San Antonio. After defeating the universities of Illinois at Springfield, East Central, and Pace, they were narrowly defeated by the St. Regis College. The team welcomes Incarnate Word on the 13th for their first conference home game.
ACU's men and women's cross-country teams placed 3rd and 6th, respectively, Thursday night at Baylor University. Junior Elise Goldsmith led the women's team, placing 11th at the season-opening Bear Twilight Invitational. Teammate Chloe Sissette also made her way to the top 20, placing 18th. The men's team captured the bronze medal behind Baylor and the champions Texas A&M. 3 Wildcats placed in the top 25 and 4 in the top 30. Junior Will Pike led the men with his 6K time of 19 minutes and 46 seconds. The Wildcats continue their season with their lone home meet of 2011, Saturday, September 17th.
For more information on ACU sports, visit acuoptimist.com. See you next week.
Thanks, ladies. And when we come back on the Chris Thomsen Show, we're going to talk some Lone Star Conference action, what happened last week, what's going to happen this week, more next.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Take a look at the Lone Star Conference standings, and you'll see that through 1 week, you only have 1 conference game having been played, and that was ACU's big 27-24 victory over Tarleton State. Midwestern State has not played as of yet. We'll get to this week's schedule in just a moment. Coach, if we can, let's go back to last week and look around the Lone Star Conference. Other than your big win over Tarleton, Colorado State Pueblo goes into Canyon, gets 4 field goals, and beats West Texas A&M 26-24. Coach Carthel went with a couple of different quarterbacks. He split their passes pretty evenly, 32 for one, 24 for another, and that's a tough opening loss for the Buffs.
Yeah, it is. They had some special teams breakdowns. I think they had a couple of punts blocked and didn't handle a couple of field goal snaps, and that obviously cost them in a close game. I know Pueblo really kind of won the special teams battle there, and that always concerns you game one.
Another score, the Will Wagner era begins with a victory at Angelo State, the former Odessa Permian wide receiver. He gets a win with Angelo 35-12, and I can't imagine a coaching tenure beginning much better than Will Wagner's did. He had a guy on his team take the opening kickoff back 90 yards for a touchdown in 13 seconds into his career at Angelo at 7-0.
Yeah, Angelo's always good on special teams. You got to really watch their return game, and good start for them. Great start.
And Kingsville won also last week. They were a power in the Lone Star Conference. They're the only other team in the AFCA poll that is ranked in the top 25 other than your ACU Wildcats. Talk about what you expect from Kingsville this year and some of the other powers in the LSC.
Well, they showed their strength going on the road against a really good opponent in Central Washington, and their defense obviously stepped up, holding them to 10 points. So Kingsville looks to be what we thought they were.
A couple of other games. You had New Mexico Highlands over Eastern New Mexico 43-36. That was an overtime loss for the Greyhounds, and Texas A&M Commerce loses their opener 15-14. So let's take a look at this week's schedule. Coach, you guys have a week off, so let's look at some of the other games. You have only one other conference game, like last week, Eastern New Mexico at Incarnate Word. Both teams coming in 0-1, and again, as we said, you don't have the North and South divisions like you've had in previous years. Every game counts in the conference standings.
Yeah, it does. It's hard playing conference games this early. You'd like to have a couple of games where you're kind of working the kinks out, but no time to do that this year. Maybe one, maybe two non-conference, but you gotta be ready early, and that'll be an interesting game down in San Antonio. A team that throws it a bunch versus an I formation type run team. See how that works out.
Midwestern State begins its season. Coach Bill Maskell is the longest tenured coach in the Lone Star Conference. They play Missouri S&T, and like a lot of teams in the Lone Star Conference, your team is one of the rarities. It's a new quarterback. Zach Eskridge did a lot of good things up in Wichita Falls the last few years, so kind of a new beginning for Midwestern State and Coach Maskell.
Yeah, Midwestern having to start over at quarterback, and their run game's really strong, and they'll lean on that. They got a really good offensive line and a stable of running backs, and it'll be interesting to see how their quarterbacks progress as the season goes.
Coach, you guys go from 4-1 poll up to 3, 3-1 poll up to 2. We've said this before, but that's not even on your radar, is it?
Not really. I mean, if we're the number 2 team in the country right now, then I don't think we're that. I mean, I think we can progress to that, but you know, the preseason polls are just strictly off of what happened last year, and we've got a lot of work to do if we're going to prove out that type of ranking as the season goes.
Well, enjoy the off week, the open date this week, and a reminder that Monday night, September 12th, we debut the Radio Coaches Show at Buffalo Wild Wings. So if you have a chance to come out onto the back patio, great specials, food specials out there in the back patio. You can talk to Coach T there. Some of the players will be out there as well. And it's broadcast locally on 1280 AM Classic Country here in the Abilene area. For Austin Gwynn and for Coach Thomsen, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Chris Thomsen Show. Don't forget, next week, ACU against North Alabama at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. Till then, we'll see you here on the Chris Thomsen Show.